Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and if you're new here, this is the podcast where we talk about entrepreneurship, identity, and building a life that actually feels like yours. And today's episode is one that I've been wanting to record since before our little Bula Baby ever even arrived. We are talking about our birth story. And more specifically, we're talking about why I, as a sober woman, chose to go completely unmedicated through labor and delivery. Now, I know that's a sentence that's going to land differently for different people. Some of you are nodding, some of you are raising an eyebrow, and I love both of you for being here because this is not an episode about telling you what's right for your birth. It's about telling you what was right for ours and the thinking that got us there. This is also an episode about what it looks like when everything you built holds you exactly the way that it was designed to. Because the business that was built for baby had to carry us long before baby got here. So grab a drink and get comfortable. I'm going to be sharing my birth story and specifically what it has to do with our business, our mindset, and how we're able to have our entire lives rely solely on this business. So I want to start at the beginning because our birth story doesn't actually start on February 12th, 2026 when our little man was born. It starts in 2021. That's when I met my now husband, Tyler. And on our very first date, like literally first date, we talked about wanting children. Not in a weird way, but in a way that felt completely natural. Like two people who were clear on where they were headed and weren't interested in wasting each other's time. We knew we wanted to build a life around our future family. We wanted any kids we had to have everything we could give them, including as much of our time as humanly possible. And that was the foundation that we started to build upon from day one. In 2022, work stress was giving me vertigo, like clinical vertigo. Like my doctor told me I could not drive until it was resolved. And during this time, Tyler and I have already been working together, right? And the type of stress that was happening was so incredibly intense because we were working for someone else. We were like building someone else's dream, and it was just never good enough. And it hurt. It was hard to lead our team, right? And in that time, something clicked for both of us. We looked at each other and said that something has to change. We were running on someone else's schedule. We were giving our best hours to other people's priorities. And both of our bodies were starting to keep score, especially mine. Now, 2023, this is the year we got married, but 3 months before our wedding, I had a miscarriage. And then 2 months after our wedding, so December 2023, we were just done. We were done feeling our bodies being just this place to hold tension and stress. We quit our jobs, both of us at the same time with no savings. We had just had our wedding, so we just spent all of our money on that. And we really were just jumping off a cliff. We decided to build a virtual business that would allow us to be what we call lifestyle rich. So yes, of course, the goal is to profit and to have everything in life paid for, right? So our business and our personal expenses be covered, but also we wanted to set our own schedule. We wanted to build the boundaries that my body needed to heal, to create the kind of life where a child would have the environment that we always envisioned for them. So it was a lot more than just wanting a raise, and it was really more so wanting a raise on our schedule. We wanted to own every bit of time that we had. So starting right at the beginning of 2024, we spent every waking hour building. Again, not to get rich quick, not to go viral, but to build something that could run with me specifically working only 5 to 20 hours a week maximum and still cover every family and business expense. We were building it for the season we thought was coming later, after baby. We had no idea how much we were going to need it before baby ever got here. Now, I want to mention the goal was to get the business in a place where I specifically only needed to be working 5 to 20 hours a week, but it took working about 80 hours a week that first year of building to make that happen. So let's fast forward to February 2025. So this is a year and a month. So 13 months into our business, I got pregnant. But then in April, I had another miscarriage. So June 2025, we got pregnant again, and I was so sick. Almost 200 days straight of vomiting. So first trimester and into the second. There were days that I could barely function. Days I couldn't look at a screen. Days where the business had to move without me being fully in it. And because of how we built it, it could. Now, fast forward to February 2026, 4 weeks early, our Bula Baby arrived. Again, to be so clear, like make sure the math is mathing here. Getting pregnant in June means that our due date was actually in March, but baby boy decided to come 4 weeks early. So we built our business for a season that we thought was still in the future at that point, right? Like it actually ended up holding us through the miscarriage, through months of sickness, through a pregnancy that asked everything of me before labor even started. We thought the protection of the business for when after baby arrived, but it turned out we needed it for the entire lead up. That is what it means to build something that actually works. Not for perfect conditions, but for real ones. Okay, now we can talk about the day of. So our Bula Baby arrived on Thursday, February 12th, and he came into this world with unparalleled determination. Here's the timeline. So around 7 a.m., my water broke. I had no idea. And by 11 a.m., we were checking in with our midwives. And at noon, contractions were really what I call beginning. They were definitely beginning before then, but that was when I actually started to feel them and be slightly debilitated by them. Then about 52 contractions later, according to my app, so around 4 p.m., we had to arrive at our birthing center because it was getting serious. About 50 contractions after that, a few minutes past 7 p.m., he arrived. Now, the wild thing about giving birth at a birth center is only 4 short hours later, we walked out and drove home together as a family and slept in our own bed. No medications, no medical interventions, no doctors present, no doula, no tears, no complications. He latched right away without a lactation consultant, and I have shown no signs of postpartum depression. Now, we are both first-time parents. I am 31 as of recording this and of giving birth. This is nearly what some people would consider geriatric in terms of pregnancy, which that's its own conversation. We chose to birth at a birth center instead of a hospital because we do not believe having a baby is a medical event. We sat with God before this pregnancy and before this birth and got clear on what we were choosing and why. And the part that still stops me every time I think about it is that, like, I could feel him. Like, I could feel my baby helping me labor him out like a dance. He kicked my water open 4 weeks early. He put himself in the perfect birthing position. He was an active participant in his own arrival. And I was only able to feel that, only able to stay present in that because I was fully there, unmedicated, uninterrupted, and all the way in it. This baby is only weeks old, and he has already shown us how intuitive, intentional, and wise he is. He came in knowing exactly who he wanted to be. Okay, so let's talk about the decision, right? Because I know the title of this episode raised some eyebrows, and I want to address it head on. Why did I choose to go unmedicated, and why is sobriety a part of that answer? So I am a sober woman. That is part of my identity, part of the show, part of who I am. And for me, the connection between sobriety and going unmedicated is not complicated. I chose sobriety initially because I want to be present in life. I choose it because I value clarity. I choose it because I don't want anything blunting my ability to experience my own life fully. Labor and delivery for me was no different. I wanted to be present for the birth of my son, fully, not floating above it, not numbed through it, present for every contraction, every breath, every single moment of something I had waited for through 2 miscarriages and 200 days of sickness. I was not going to miss it. But there was something else, something that I think a lot about, and I want to say it really clearly. Pain relief, like an epidural, helps the mother. That is real and that is valid, but an epidural does not cross to the baby. It does not travel through the placenta, and it does not take the edge off for them. Labor is hard for baby too. Baby is working, and I thought a lot about that. Labor and delivery to me is teamwork. My husband and I were a team, but more than that, my baby and I were a team. I could feel him working with me, and I did not want to leave him hanging. I also want to name something that might be uncomfortable. There's a lot of fear around birth. A lot. And a lot of money to be made by keeping that fear alive. When 98% of the people in our lives wanted to hand us their fears before we walked into that birthing center, and they did, they absolutely did, we had a decision to make. Do we absorb those fears and let them live in our bodies on the day that we need our bodies the most? Or do we reject them? Well, we rejected all of it. We looked very delusional to many people, and we chose empowerment over fear. It definitely paid off. We went into that birth with a clear vision, a spiritual commitment, and the understanding that what we were entering was a trance state, a ritual, something that required me to be mentally and physically all in. And my husband, who helped me through every contraction, mentally and physically, who was my anchor through every wave of pain, made that possible. This was not a solo performance. It was a partnership from the first contraction to the last. I am so happy to share resources with anybody who's curious about this style of birthing. Go ahead and just email me, hello@marinamars.com. I know it's not for everyone. You have to go in with a clear mindset, a clear birth vision, and a real commitment on a spiritual level. We're not here to tell you what's right for your birth. We're just here to testify ours. And I want to make it so clear that we didn't just go in on a whim and a prayer. We did a lot of research. We invested in hypnobirthing classes. We invested in daddy doula classes. We took a lot of time to not only make sure this was the right decision for us, but that we had all the information we needed, because truly, when it comes down to that day, that room that we were giving birth in, the midwife was just kind of there to make sure everything was good. But it was myself, my husband, and my baby doing just about 100% of the work. Now, here's the thing about going through everything we went through: the miscarriages, the sickness, the early arrival, the unmedicated birth, the early postpartum days, and still having a business that held us through all of it. It proved something. We built our business the way that I approached that birth, with intention, with a clear vision of what we wanted and what we wanted it to do for us, with the mindset that when the hard moments came, and they were always going to come, the foundation we laid would hold. And it did. Through 2 pregnancy losses, through a pregnancy that had me barely functional for months, through a postpartum season where my capacity is genuinely different than it was before. The business kept moving. The income kept coming in. The work kept reaching people. Not because I was hustling through the hardest season of my life, in fact, quite the opposite, but because I had built something that could work without me being available every minute. Again, he came 4 weeks early. Like, there's nothing that I can compare that to, except for if you've been in this type of situation, the type of shock you have when you're told you're going to have a baby today, 4 weeks prior to when you thought you would. You don't even have your hospital bag packed. You thought you were going to work on some work projects, but nope, you're bringing a life into the world. And to summarize again, what this taught me about business is that the whole way we went about this is leverage. This is what sustainable means, right? It's not a pretty word for a business plan. It's an actual thing, an actual support system that shows up when your life needs it. And not only needs it because you planned it, but needs it because something unexpected happens. Maybe there's a death in the family. Maybe there's a catastrophic event that happens to your home. Maybe an unexpected opportunity arises and you have to move across the country at a moment's notice. What support systems do you have in place to help you through those transitions? I think about what this last year would have looked like if we hadn't made the decisions that we made in December 2023. If we hadn't quit, if we hadn't built, even though we didn't have a runway, even though we did not have a savings account to hold us afloat. We just had to ball from day one. I think about if we had still been tethered to someone else's schedule and someone else's income ceiling when my body was asking me to stop. I don't want to think about it too long, but I want you to think about it. Because if there's a season coming in your life, and there always is, the question isn't whether the hard things will happen. The question is whether what you've built will hold you when they do. One of the specific things I built, and one of the things that kept working while I wasn't, is this podcast, and more specifically, the ecosystem around it. Because a podcast alone is a creative outlet, but a podcast with intention, with a clear pathway that moves a listener from, I love this show, to, I want to work with her, without anyone getting on a sales call, that is a business asset. It's the difference between a beautiful drink that someone sips once and forgets, and a recipe that's documented, scaled, and reproducible. The craft matters, but so does the system. And that's what I've been building here. And that's what I want to help you build too. I have a program called Profitable Podcasting Without Sales Calls, and the name is exactly what it says. It's for people who have a podcast or want to build one and who want it to actually generate income, but not through sponsors and not through millions of downloads, through a strategic ecosystem where your show does the heavy lifting, where your listeners move naturally towards working with you, and where you never have to get on a sales call to make it happen. I built it because I needed it. I needed my work to have leverage. I needed something that could keep reaching people and converting them on the days and the weeks and the months that I couldn't be fully available. And it worked. I have lived proof of that now, time and time again. The kind of strategy inside this program would run you $3,000 to $5,000 at least trying to piece it together on your own. And I've packaged it for only $397 because I built it for people, like real people with real lives, not for people with unlimited time to figure it out slowly. So if your podcast has been your best kept secret, like if you've been pouring into it and not seeing it convert, or you've had an idea to do something like this and you've never quite acted on it, this is the fix. If you are about to start that podcast, you want to build it right from day one, this is the blueprint. And if you are in a full demanding season of life and you need to work, like you need your work to work without you being available around the clock to advertise it, this was built for you. So especially those of you out there who love your craft, you love what you're doing, you have a passion, but the sales, the marketing, the whole client acquisition part is kind of like not your favorite thing. It's not your main focus, right? This is something you might highly want to consider. Even if you've never done public speaking before, I swear so many people, you can do this. Like more people can do this than you would imagine. So the link is in the show notes. Go check it out. But it's themodernmocktail.thrivecart.com/profitable-podcasting. Whew. So episode 103. I've been sitting on this one for a while because the birth of our son is the most sacred thing I've ever been a part of. And sharing it felt like a responsibility to tell it honestly, to tell it fully, and to trust that the people who need it will find it. If you're someone who is trying to conceive and the road has been harder than expected, I see you. I've been there more than once. Keep going. If you're pregnant and feeling the weight of everyone else's fear and opinion about how your birth should go, you are allowed to choose differently. You are allowed to do your own research. You're allowed to have a vision for your birth that doesn't match what everyone else tells you is realistic. And side note, it's never, anything in life is never really going to go according to plan, right? Like having given birth 4 weeks early means we didn't have time to pack our bag ahead of time. We threw applesauce in a laundry basket with some towels and a couple other things and just ran out the door. It's a wild ride, but again, perfection is never what you're aiming for here, right? It's building systems that in general support you so much so that when those details fall through the cracks, it's not gonna break the entire wagon. And if you are an entrepreneur who is trying to build something while your life is full of a new baby, full of a health challenge, full of a season that's demanding more than you expected, please hear me when I say the time to build the foundation is before you need it. And if you haven't started it yet, today is still early. Our Bula Baby is here. He is healthy, he is intentional, and he has no idea that his whole family rearranged our entire lives to make room for him. He just knows he's loved, and that's enough. This is why we built what we built. This is why we showed up through the hardest seasons. This is why leverage matters and sustainability matters, and building something that works for your life, not someone else's idea of a life, matters. Okay, before you go, 2 things. If this episode moved you, if it made you feel something, gave you permission to think differently about birth or business or both, please leave a review. Wherever you're listening, it takes 30 seconds and it means more than I could possibly know how to say right now. And follow along if you're not already, because this show is in a season of its own right now, and I have so much more I want to share. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for witnessing this chapter with me. I'm Marina. This is Mocktails with Marina, and as always, if you need anything, just let me know.